So we're live now? We're live. Yeah, cool. So Cora, I'll let you start off with introductions then if you want me to kick it off.
Sure, yeah. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. Tonight we are addressing education reform, especially in light of everything going on in the world of education. We thought that this was a really important conversation to have. And we have some great panelists here. Oh, it looks like we have another one. We have some great panelists here. Four of us are actually students of one of the institutions under the CUNY umbrella, and we're all just here to share our stories and talk about how we might want to reform the education system and process and policies that are currently in place.
That's true. Actually, Hunter College is actually the flagship and the largest college and the largest university college system in the United States, which is actually the CUNY system. So there's actually they actually have student interns that actually do internships at the White House. I believe that there was someone who got a pathway. So unfortunately, there's we're going to go into some of the connections to federal government and what's going on there and all kinds of other shenanigans. I think recently a professor was found to be stealing money. Right, all kinds of other deep level stuff going on. General Petraeus, we're going to get into all kinds of stuff. This is part of the Up 24 series. We actually invited presidential candidates and other candidates from all over the nation to partake in today's event. Some more may be dropping by later on. And the thing is that, the student, just being active for over 25 years, I've worked with Republicans, Independents, Greens, and Libertarians. And I've been in the activism field. I actually come to this field from student activism. And the thing is that the student activism, as well as the anti-war space, is actually highly controlled. I'm sorry to say, and actually the most co-opted out of all the activism that is really out there, just straight up. So this is a very important topic today. So thank you so much.
Thanks, DJ. Wonderful. Why don't we start next with Alan? Alan, if you want to introduce yourself and tell everyone why you're here, what you're a part of.
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for doing this, Corey and Ed. I appreciate it greatly. I think this is a wonderful independent forum where we can get our voices out, where the two-party duopoly has essentially stolen the entire media market for such things in general. But my name is Alan Collins. I am founder of studentloanjustice.org. I'm actually it turns out, the first student loan activist in the country. I wrote the first book to be critical of the federal student loan program. And most recently, I wrote the petition on change.org/cancel student loans that elevated the entire discussion about canceling student loans by executive order into the public conversation. So I realized that both the Democrats and the Republicans are completely against us, ladies and gentlemen. I know the rhetoric is different from either party, but I can tell you that neither Joe Biden nor Donald Trump has any desire or intentions of actually solving the student loan problem. The core of this remains the unique absence of fundamental bankruptcy protections. And Joe Biden actually was key in getting those removed, going back to his days as a junior senator in 1970s. So I decided to run for president this year. I would urge everybody with student loans to tell everybody you know about my campaign. If things go really well, in maybe the best case scenario, we can compel one or both parties to actually solve, not pretend solve, actually solve this problem, which starts with the return of fundamental bankruptcy rights before the election. That's my true hope. And I can only tell you that if you have student loans, everybody with student loans needs to know about my campaign, which is at collingeforpresident.com.
Great.
Right there.
See it right there. Wonderful. Thank you, Alan, so much for being here. I think you certainly have some great things to add tonight. Brianna, let's go with you. You want to just tell us a little bit about who you are, what work you've done, and why you're here?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Brianna Calderon Navarro. I am a reject of Hunter College. I was originally accepted to the CUNY system through the Macaulay Honors Program in 2012. And that was my first experience really being in New York City. I was an out-of-state student. I'm originally from Florida, so and then my family background is from Mexico. I'm first generation immigrant on my mom's side, first generation college student here in New York, or here in the United States. And I spent a really long time in and out of the CUNY system. I had to take a lot of time off throughout the process because of how challenging it was to be through this institution and feeling really misunderstood and feeling really demoralized by what I was witnessing, both inside the classrooms, the hardships of other students, the hardships of adjunct professors, and the exploitation and oppression at the hands of the administration. So towards the end of my time at Hunter, I was already a bit of an older student, and I had already seen a few cycles of students that had been basically churned out by the administration. And I was tired of the endless just repairs and neglect of the physical infrastructure of the space, witnessing parts of the ceilings crumbling and falling, one time even hitting a student on the head. So after a long time and just being a little bit older, I had the confidence to start rallying student activism. One of my most predominant passion causes that I focused on was trying to stop Starbucks from being put onto the main ground floor of the Hunter College campus. And that was a very intense campaign that received a lot of backlash from the administration. And ultimately, the Starbucks was implemented, and it still is there. I am no longer part of CUNY. I have moved on to be one of the founding members of a mutual aid turned nonprofit located in Brooklyn called Collective Focus. I started doing a lot of food justice activism during the pandemic, and now as part of this organization, I'm the migrant outreach coordinator, and I've helped redistribute over 360,000 pounds of free food and clothing to people in the Brooklyn area, helping 70,000 people. 100,000 pounds of that food was directly rescued from the landfill by tapping into surplus foods from the supply chain. All of the clothing that we redistribute is all secondhand items that neighbors are able to share and get their needs met in that way. And in total, the value of goods that have been moved through Collective Focus is now appraised at $1.2 million. So that's what I've been doing now, and it is a direct reaction to the frustrations that I had in college, feeling like I really wasn't getting a lot done. And now I get to do a lot of cool stuff every day. So thank you for hearing my intro and a little bit of the context of why I would be here to talk to you guys.
Sorry. Brianna, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate everything you can add tonight. And yeah, let's continue on with the next one, Andy Williams. Andy, if you want to introduce yourself. Thanks so much for being here tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I am Andy Hope Williams Jr., coming out of Illinois, native of Aurora. Most people just know Chicago. I'm a 2024 presidential candidate with a platform primarily on abolishing legalized slavery. And what I look at as the legalized slavery is any policy, codes, or statutes that infringe upon our rights. I'm a minister, a marketplace minister, meaning that my ministry is in the streets with the people, and I run a We Are the People ministry right now, which is really about teaching the people about the power that we have. And so primarily dealing with the current and formerly incarcerated, I'm saying that we got the right to run for office and be the change that we need to see. So that's a little bit about me. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for making it. We really appreciate that. Susan, do you want to introduce yourself? Thanks so much for being here tonight.
Okay, well, yeah, thank you for organizing this. You know, the two big parties, they have their own debates, and it's important for presidential debates to happen. And they can happen just like this all over the internet, and you know, they should be. They don't have to. We shouldn't have to have millions of dollars, and we shouldn't have to make terrible TV commercials and radio commercials and attack each other for no reason, just to be a part of a debate. So anyways, I really appreciate you doing this. I am Susan Buchser Lahaki. I am running for president of the United States, and I am a write-in candidate. I'm also in my RV right now, and so there might be some background noises sometimes because there are cars around me and apparently a helicopter too. So I'm really on the road. But anyways, education is a huge part of my platform. We need to totally upcycle our education system. I've seen different sections of it and how it works, and then I had the fortune of living 20 years in Switzerland, where I saw a completely different education system, and it's working really well there, producing super talented and young people with lots of potential. And so a lot of the things that I have in my platform about education are inspired by the Swiss system. I don't follow the Swiss system entirely because there are sections that don't work that I've seen, but we definitely need to overhaul our education system. So yeah, I'm really happy to be here and talk about education today. So thank you for organizing this. If anybody wants to find out more about me, I do have a website. It's susan4usa.com. That's Susan, the number 4, USA.com. And yeah, so I hand it back to you, Corey. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much for being here. You certainly have a lot of good things to add, given you have that experience overseas with how systems operate there. And I guess I haven't introduced myself. I have been an abusee of the CUNY system as well, specifically Hunter College. It forced me to kind of take a deeper look as to what was really operating, going on, and why is it that these administrators I was interacting with felt that they were in a position of power and they could abuse students. And I couldn't believe, as I was continuing to research online, how many other students had endured similar abuses, and just the types of things this administration was doing, pushing these students through their system as almost cash cows. It just blew my mind. The truths of what I came across, and the abuse in the system and why. And I am really looking forward to diving deeper into that tonight, and with the support of all of you, and getting everything that you have to add to this case would be quite helpful. So, all right. So let's see. On my agenda, I actually I have a spreadsheet here that I would like to present everyone. It basically lays out all of the salaries for the upper administration at within CUNY, and I thought that was a really great place to start. Right, where's the money going, and why are these individuals in the power that they are, and why might they keep silent about some of the injustices that are going on? So let me go ahead and pull that up. I want to present that right now. Let's see if I've got this. Again, this is my first time using StreamYard. DJ, you know, I might need...
Go to present and then choose either screen, or you can choose actually a certain window. So if you go to share screen, then you have some choices right there. You could choose a tab, a window, or the entire screen.
Oh.
Okay, so go down to present. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Okay.
Great. Share screen. Here we go. Allow select one developers. CUNY Excel. Here we go. All right, here we are. Everyone can see this, correct?
Yes.
Yes. All right, great. So here we are. This is everyone within the CUNY central offices. Maybe I should make it a bit bigger here, but you can see I have the average salaries and then the salaries of the individuals within the CUNY system, starting with the chancellor at a whopping $758,000 annually. And this was from 2022. I don't know if this shocks anyone, but that's a pretty big number. So we can see it's just kind of setting the stage for some of these abuses and abuses of power and corruption, etc., that is present in the system. Yeah, and I just kind of broke it down again, that entire central office, the executive vice chancellor. Again, everything is higher than the national average. Obviously, living in New York City, it is a costly place to live, but wow. So if anyone has anything to comment on this, I invite you to please do so.
You know what? Yeah, the compensation there sounds ridiculous. These are also state employees, by the way. I'd like to hear from the candidates right now how they would actually write on what they think of this, if they think this is right, and what they would do to actually, address these kinds of issues. I'm very interested. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Alan. Alan, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Yes, I'm happy to weigh in. So the big picture in the state of New York is that there is a $100 billion of outstanding student loan debt hanging over the state. That's enough to build the World Trade Center complex 25 times over. Interest alone on this is about $6 or $7 billion a year, being slapped onto our backs, the student loan borrowers in Central Washington, D.C. And, we've seen an explosion in not only the wages, but the total compensation packages of university presidents, chancellors, Board of Regents, Board of Trustees, some that even make these inflated salaries pale in comparison. One thing I might mention, Corey, is that, the administration salaries are out of control. But most of the colleges have begun amassing slush funds over the past 15, 20 years or so. And this includes many, many state colleges. I'm sure it involves both the CUNY and the SUNY systems. So I would urge you, maybe next time you're researching any college system in New York, look at the annual report. And I urge everybody watching this to do the same. Look at the annual report, say, of your alma mater. And look at in the balance sheet that is usually contained in most of those annual reports, you will see unreserved assets and reserved assets. So that's sort of the assets, both liquid cash, investments, other things that the university owns. And you will see that either one or both of those categories have exploded over the past 20 years. And when I say slush fund, those actually aren't my words. Those are the words of the University of Virginia rector, Helen Dragas, who broke the very first story on this in around 2015. So the money that the colleges are sitting on right now in general, chief among them being both of the New York university systems, it's staggering. It's jaw-dropping. We're talking collectively hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars. And so it's just a shame how poorly some of these colleges treat their students. And, they maximize the amount of loan money they can get. So, they will very strategically organize their class schedules such that it no longer takes 4 years to get a basic 4-year degree. It now takes on average well over 6 years if you even graduate. 40% of people who go to college do not graduate. So I'm really looking forward to the discussion here tonight, because quite frankly, the colleges need to be held accountable strongly. Right now, they completely are not. In fact, they have all the perverse incentives to manipulate, I would say target, certainly abuse, prey upon their students, string them out for far longer than is necessary, make it far harder for them to graduate rather than easier. And some of the coursework that they offer is getting a little bit head scratching as well, but maybe that's a little bit of a different issue. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Alan. Susan, yes.
Okay, well, so I went to university back, or I should say college, back in '84. And I went to a private school, Parsons School of Design, part of the New School for Social Research. And it was expensive back then. And what I discovered when I went was I could actually get almost the same exact education for like a third less of the price if I had gone to, I forget what the other art school, there's another art school in New York City that was on the same level at the time. And we even had a lot of the same professors. So depending on what school you went to, is how much you paid. And it was already outrageous back then, but it's even more outrageous now what you have to pay for Parsons. With the state-run schools, the states are in charge of their education to an extent. So I just want to say that the private schools are in charge of their school privately. And however they want to charge people is up to them. But what I can definitely say, and I've heard this many times from people who've graduated from all different levels of higher education, is that the schools don't prepare you to get a job. They don't prepare you to work. They don't prepare you to deal with life's issues and how to go about from one step to the next. So this is where a lot of them are failing. You're not getting a complete education. And so there's that part of it. But as far as, let's get back to your issue about the state schools, of higher education, I think if we could centralize a lot of the administration, rather than each school work separately, have them work as a unit, and one sort of administration office to handle all of New York State, whatever university level, or I forget all the terminology because I've been living in Switzerland, but there's got to be a way to reduce the costs, but yet provide a good education. And this is where we're failing clearly. And I think probably each school has their own administration. And so then there's all these salaries that are being paid that are unnecessary. So I think it starts there on this level, on what you're talking about. But I want to take it one step. I think we even have to go further down the line. So we need to change high school as we know it today. Sending everybody to university or to college is not necessary. We've got a lot of people with degrees that are not being used. And this is, again, it's the failing of our lower education of high school and junior high. So I suggest that with junior high and high school, we need to replace that with apprenticeships for all, so that kids get working, so that they learn how to earn a dollar. They learn what they can do with that dollar. They learn how to take care of that dollar, and they learn responsibility and respectfulness. We've also separated the generations too much, where teenagers are only around teenagers for, a long time. And then by the time they get out in the work world, they don't know how to write a resume. They don't know how to write a cover letter. They don't know how to be respectful. And this is where a lot of the issues are too. And then there's all these gangs because the kids have been alone for so long and they've been raising each other. So we need to get kids working already at the age of 15. So the idea is at 14, the kids start learning how to write a resume, how to go on job interviews, and to pick a career path. And then they go and test it out for a day or two. They test out like 3 different things, and then they come back and decide, okay, this is what I want to focus on. And then they start focusing on it. And then they go and they test out a 1 or 2 jobs, and then they decide to apply. So then they apply and they go on interviews, and then they have the full like looking for a job experience. And then after that, they get an apprenticeship somewhere. And works. So what it'll be is the town and the parents and the kid and the school system, the elementary and, well, not elementary, the junior high system will work with the town in the nearby vicinity and help to find people and placements for the kids in jobs that they want to do, whether they want to be a graphic designer or whether they want to be a lawyer or whether they want to be a mechanic or whether they want to be a house painter or whether they want to eventually become a doctor or a nurse. They need to find a placement for that child to have that experience. And it's a 3-year experience where you learn each year a little bit more responsibility and a little bit more in-depth education where you can be useful also while you're there. So you're not just sitting on a chair, you're actually helping out in some small way. And then after 3 years, you graduate, but then you can continue your education if you want. There will be a career counselor then again at that level who will then guide you to whatever your next level might be. If you want to, become a lawyer, then you have to go then to a law school, whether it's a state one or a private one. That's up to, again, how people feel and what they want to do. But I think, taking out student loans is not a good idea. But on the other hand, during your internship, you also earn some money. So you have some money in the bank and you've learned to use your money well. I think personally, the way of finishing a level and then going to a next one is not necessarily the steps that need to happen. There are also sort of gray zones where you can go to night school and pick up a few classes and do it slower. You don't have to do the fast track into a career because you're now already working. You have experience, you're working already in a law office or you're working already at the hospital, and you slowly then work up the ladder. And each time you get a little more salary and a little more responsibility, and you have guidance from them too. And so this is something I've seen work. It works really well, and it produces kids that are well-rounded and able to handle the challenges of life. And this is not what I'm seeing in our own country. I see a lot of drug abuse, which I did not see in Switzerland. I see a lot of unhappy kids hurting and being mean to others. And the list just goes on of the problems we have in this country with our young people. So I think this might be a good step. And then the state level schools will see a lot of these students go into them. That would be my goal, is to keep kids local as much as possible too, because we have right now a lot of kids going off in different directions. And this is also not good. We're having a brain drain from the middle of the country. And this is also not good. But anyway, so this is my idea of part of it, to streamline and to get kids working without having to have a higher education.
Susan, this brings me actually to a point I did want to make. So the teachers union within the CUNY system, they recently had a hearing in front of the CUNY Board of Trustees. The CUNY Board of Trustees is comprised of they are appointed officials, not elected officials. And that's actually the next spreadsheet I had here. This is the list of them. 2 of the top individuals here, Willie Thompson and Sandra Wilkinson, both of them have very close ties with New York State politics. leaving, these decisions are being made by these individuals. So what room does this leave the public to be making calls like this, making suggestions like the things that you are presenting tonight and suggesting? How does one break through this current system that we have in place and allow for a true democracy? Does anybody have anything to add to that or any experience?
You have to be president.
I see that Andy
I think
has.
Andy's up. Yeah, go ahead.
So there's a guy named Harris Rosen out of Florida, and he gave free daycare to, it was a Tangelo Park program. He gave free daycare to every 2, 3, 4-year-old. It was a high crime area. And then from there, he gave full scholarships to everybody that graduated in any institution, school in Florida, whether it be a university or trade school or anything. So that's a model that a guy did on his own that was self-funded, that I would model that program and say, here's a freedom of choice. Here's a choice. And like Mike Rowe with the dirty jobs, when we're talking about apprenticeship, because I think it's so much focused on the way the current system is set up. And it's not set up for we the people. It's set up for that structure. So once we start offering alternatives, freedom of choice, that gives the power back to the people in the community. So instead of having to go to law school, you can have an apprenticeship program like Vermont does or California. And now these apprenticeship programs, which I so applaud Susan for the things that she said. So I'm piggybacking off of what she said in a continuation, that there's solutions that we're giving the power back to, or I don't want to say giving the power back to the people, but helping people be aware of the power that we can have for the solutions in our community. And then by default, this school systems that are set up right now are going to start dwindling because the people are no longer coming there, but because they're seeing something of value. So when we're doing, like, the Department of Corrections Michigan has a prison bill program where they deal with the apprenticeship, teaching the villagers, they don't even call them prisoners, how to rebuild their community. They partner with Habitat for Humanity, and they were building these prefab homes and different things like that. Now we're going into these marginalized communities, or any community. I don't want to just focus on that, but saying now we're providing not only affordable but sustainable housing, and you don't have this huge balance behind you and what you're doing. And then I can't think of the title of it right now, but if you went to school and got a degree and then you worked for like 10 years, or Student Loan Forgiveness Act, if you work into the community, that payment for that student loan was based on the amount that you were getting paid. So it'd be a prorated fee. Prorated payment. Then after 10 years, it will be forgiven. So now, well, I'm only sharing that, not saying that's the best model, but showing that there are certain things in place that if the people were aware of this, then we would really be able to attack this education system indirectly, but still get an achieved result that we're looking for. So that's how I digress with that.
Did someone else have their hand up? Was that DJ?
Yeah, I would.
Say.
Corey, I would maybe just add to that. I appreciate the discussion. I agree with most all of the points here tonight. I think apprenticeship is a great way to go. But Corey, you put your finger on a very important problem, and that is that the colleges, including the private schools, but most notoriously the state schools, they are primarily political animals, and it's kind of hard to tell where the state legislature and the people who run the colleges, the state colleges, where one drops off and the other begins sometimes. Absolutely. And that extends not only to the state legislatures, but also the federal legislature. Show me a retired congressman and I will show you somebody who probably has a teaching job at a college. So these are the sorts of connections that we as people don't really see, but the ties between the funding bodies and the colleges themselves are just very deep. I would say in many cases, straight up corrupted. There has been many examples of kickbacks, paybacks, no work jobs, etc. for former members of Congress. I could maybe mention Joe Biden's teaching stint at University of Pennsylvania. I don't have a whole lot of details about that, but that's kind of the way the game is played. And when that dynamic is occurring, the people actually receiving the educations, and in my view, most importantly, the people who are saddled with debt that is used to fund these operations, they're completely left out of the mix. And so as president, the first thing that I see that needs to happen is the back of the federal student loan program has to be broken. The lending program is catastrophically failed, like nothing we've ever seen before with any other lending system in this country. You know, as we speak today, 80% of all federal student loan borrowers, since they turned the repayment back on post-COVID, 80% of everyone is not paying. So I don't know what you call that, but I call that a catastrophically failed lending program. And because nearly all consumer protections have been removed from the loans, most notably constitutional bankruptcy rights, there's just no good end in sight to this. It can't be allowed to continue. It won't continue. But for the lack of political will in Washington, D.C., it probably would have been shuttered or modified massively years or decades ago. So what I would do as president is first and foremost, return by executive order, and the president can do this, return standard bankruptcy protections to all federally owned student loans. I would push Congress to repeal the very unique and I would say perverse law that makes bankruptcy different from all other loans for student loans, completely a very unique, unprecedented exemption. And beyond that, as I said, the lending program is so failed at this point that vast tranches of the debt are going to have to be canceled. And quite frankly, I would suspend the federal lending program, so don't make any more loans. I would put the colleges on maybe a reduced direct federal funding support system for a year or two. And I would use those 2 years to huddle with Congress, other stakeholders, but most importantly, the students and their families. These people were never at the table. These people, us, we the people, have to be at the table next time when they come up with the next greatest higher education funding model. And I feel very strongly about that. And I think at this point, I really think that's the only thing that really makes sense, because at this point, the federal lending program is all bathwater. There's really no baby worth saving.
I want to jump in real quick and clarify. I'm not running for president. I'm just here as a former student and listening to all of the different vantage points. I want to thank Alan for staying on topic out of respect to everyone's time and to some of the structure that Corey has put a lot of energy into. I think it'd be really great for us to try to focus to specifically address the concerns that myself and many of the intended audience for this call have. And so I want to kind of suggest to the candidates, all of them, that it's great to have big ideas and give us ideas on how to make changes. I think it's also really important to understand how the current system works in order to be able to fight it and undermine it, and understand how it is that we got to this point where the system has become so corrupt. It's not enough just to have a new idea. We have to come prepared with the knowledge of what these people are doing and how they were able to do it for so long and get away with it. And so some of the things that I'd like to point out, going back to the first spreadsheet, not only are those the salaries of the administrators, one of the things that also is factors in that is pretty hidden from the public is that all of these administrators get all of these additional perks and incentives for being at the top of the top of CUNY's supply or food chain, essentially. And so I know, for example, our president at Hunter College had a private chauffeur. Most of these presidents have housing stipends, so their salaries don't even go to paying for their housing. And then also, one of the things that is important to note about Hunter, the way that Hunter operates, yes, it's a CUNY school, it's public, but and there's a lot of pride that CUNY puts forward about being a public institution catering to the working class students of New York City. But the reality at Hunter College is that there is also a foundation that is kind of like a sister branch to the finances of this supposedly public institution. And the foundation is private. It actually is a private component of this public school. And one of the things that I was fighting so aggressively against the Starbucks for, one of the reasons why, is because it was an indication of this slippage, this sliding into privatization, going into this corporate direction, and not respecting the sanctity of having a truly public college the way that CUNY was intended to be, as a refuge for students that were really interested in having something like that, like myself. And so in terms of it being a private foundation, all of the money in there is even less regulated than what we see from the records that we can excavate from, for example, the City Hall hearings regarding what CUNY does, and as well as the Board of Trustee meetings. There's a whole other terrain of untapped decision-making that happens at the foundational level, including, for example, Jennifer Rabb, who had millions of dollars in a discretionary fund that was just supplied to her by private donors. And
Brianna, can you let them all know how you know all of this?
So I can't elaborate too specifically on what I had to do to get this information, but I would say that I tried to go through the democratic process, or through the rights given to me to file a Freedom of Information Law request. I did that multiple times and was stopped at every step of the way. And getting that frustration, that frustrating blockage over and over again when I was trying to foil for certain administrative and financial records, I then ended up having to infiltrate the business administration office of Hunter College and actually secure documents to corroborate what I'm saying. And then the last
good for you. Let me just say, very good for you. I admire your spirit. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. I'll let the candidates continue to speak. I won't take up too much more of the time in this call, but the last thing that I do want to state is that one of the reasons why students are unheard and overlooked so much in, especially in CUNY, is that by City Hall's estimates, our tuition only covers about 20% of the operating costs of the CUNY system. So we're actually a very small fish to the administration. To us, we feel the burden because these thousands of dollars that we pay in tuition are saddled to, especially for low-income working-class families. But to the administration, they're not really seeing us as top. I don't know, like they don't care about us as much because we're really only 20%. They're trying to go for the bigger fish, which is the private donors that are at the top. They're the elite class that is catered to, and then followed probably by federal, state, and city funding sources. And students are at the very bottom of that. And so that's why they don't listen to us. We only represent 20% of the money that can go into their pockets. So they're going for the bigger pools. And then another final context is that CUNY actually used to be free. It was free for over 100 years. It was free from 1847 to 1976. And the main reason why they say that it couldn't be free anymore is because of financial burdens, that it was unsustainable. But the reality, most students that are educated on this know that it was actually a deeply racist decision to change that structure, and it was free when CUNY was predominantly a white school, and then as soon as the demographics shifted and became more a school represented by people of color, that's when they saw us as an opportunity to extract money from us, impoverish our families, give us no guarantee for job upward mobility. Our degrees don't really mean anything in this economy anymore. So that's why they specifically did it, to exploit students of color.
Hey, I just want to say something right quick. Can you all hear me? Yeah?
Yes.
Can you guys hear me? All right,
Yes.
good. Okay. So one thing I thought y'all did a great job. And the thing is that One thing that I want to add is that the Board of Trustees, right? I did actually work with the, actually Serpico approved this plan. He said that the police cannot police themselves. And if we look at the CRB community review boards, we said a lot of them are political or organizational appointees. Once again, the Board of Trustees policing the president of Hunter College, this isn't going to work. We cannot have this people policing themselves. We need outside independent review from people that have been victims of the system and from students to also get engaged as well. Another thing that I want to say is that right now, every Thursday, right, I've done 11 consecutive weeks now, National Action Network with Al Sharpton has been out in front of there protesting for Claudine Gay, who's been actually, fired, right? Yeah, but one thing that was really a great thing with this database right here is Claudine Gay is getting $800,000 a year. We look at this chancellor right here getting $750,000 per year. If I got $10,000 every week, there's 52 weeks a year, right? $10,000 every week, I would only make $520,000 a year, not even this. They're making $2,000 every single day. For what? What are they doing? Is this education? We're right. This is so you're absolutely right. The only people that would take care of Al, okay, Al had to shout me out, by the way, and had to give me because I'm working with the wrongfully incarcerated. I'm working with other victims that are not getting taken care of. One of the longest wrongfully incarcerated in New York State history. But instead of taking care of them, we're taking care of the millionaires. Claudine Gay, stop it. Stop it right now. I'm going to tell you another thing is that we have victims here today, and I can't wait to help you, Corey. I know that you've been actually waiting to get a meeting with not only the new president of Hunter College, but also the chancellor. And I want to shout out every single U.S. presidential candidate here today. Could you join us in helping ask the president of Hunter College and the chancellor of the CUNY system to have a meeting with Corey Edens? And I also want to say the other third-party candidates like Jill Stein, like Chase Oliver, who are not here today, and Cornel West, because they're ducking exactly this. They are not ready to ask to give Corey Edens and to give the little people, right, the average person, the voice. They're only standing up for the other millionaires, Claudine Gay, right? Yeah, it's disgusting and wrong. Are you ready to help? So I just want to ask, right, is everybody here ready to support resolution? And Corey, are you down for that? Would you be down for the people to get you a meeting with the president and also the chancellor of the CUNY system? Because I'm all for it.
Absolutely. I've been asking for the past 5 years.
Well, what's going on? Okay, I'm gonna let the president please help her. God damn.
I absolutely stand at the ready to help you out. Anything that I can do by way of a letter or anything, just let me know. I view the colleges as probably my biggest nemesis in the entire battle for student loan justice. They pretend that they're on the student side, and what they do is they co-opt the students, and it's just a mess. And so the colleges have been sitting in the catbird seat about on this entire thing. And by the way, Hunter College gets about I'm just looking now, gets about $2.3 million in federal student loan revenue every year. I think it's actually quite a lot more than that in more recent years, because this is sort of 5-year-old data. So, let me know what I could do to help. Good find with that foundation, by the way. I would add, this is not a unique phenomenon. A lot of the colleges not only have, when I mentioned earlier, if you look at their balance sheet, these unreserved and reserved assets, they also have adjunct fundraising bodies, such as what was just described a few minutes ago. And so you need to look at all the revenue streams to find out maybe where you can find points of leverage, what people don't know about, what newspapers should be reporting about. That's can be very helpful. The media really should be our friend. But certainly as a presidential candidate, founder of Student Loan Justice, anything that I can do to assist you, Corey, I'm at your beck and call.
Thank you, Alan. Sincerely appreciate that. And DJ. Susan?
So for me, I think the first thing is that it sounds like there's a lot of greed and corruption. And I don't think that New York State is the only state that has this. So I'm going to recommend that everybody, when we get off this call, off this debate, go to the FBI website and report what you know about the corruption. Report everything. You might have to do a few reports because when you report there, they only take a certain amount of information. So you might have to come at the story from different angles. but get them behind you, get them helping you. That's what they're there for. They're there to make sure that corruption stops. And it sounds like you got a lot of greed and corruption going on there, a lot of friends making friends rich and stealing money, basically. So this is a huge problem, and I don't think New York State is the only one doing it. You know, I don't know if you know, but I have a lawsuit currently pending with the Supreme Court because we have this thing called registering to vote, which is actually unconstitutional. That's the other thing. A lot of people don't know what their rights are, and they don't know what's in the Constitution. So I also recommend that all of us and everybody watching go and pick up a copy of your Constitution and read it and understand it. And that includes the Bill of Rights, because we have a lot of rights that are being abused on every level. And that's, again, the FBI is there to help us get our rights and have them secure. So anyway, we should not have to register on some list that has no checks and balance, that's only been in the hands of the Democrats and the Republicans, and they're the only ones who knows the names that are on there. And in the Constitution, it says that we have a right to our liberties without obstruction from states. Now, the states are in charge of the election process. That's what's in the Constitution. That's what it says. But they've created this unnecessary step. You cannot vote in any state of our country without registering to vote first. And this is an obstacle to my right to vote and to your right to vote. And this is how they're manipulating everything. And they know how to do it. They've been practicing it for about 100 years now. And it's in every school too. It's in every police department. It's everywhere in our country. And the only way to stop it is to get the courts involved. Make lawsuits. That's the best way to do it. Go to the FBI. That's the best way to do it. It's the only way to stop the corruption. And then having a presidential candidate, or having a president who's on your side. And that is probably a lot of the people here who are running for president, and I'm also one of them. I am a people, and I'm here for you, the people. And so, yes, we need to stop the corruption 100%.
I am curious. I was looking on the legal website, and I just wanted to share this with everyone again. So they've implemented an ethics training as of 2022, the Ethics Commission Reform Act. Does anyone have any background or familiarity with this act and it being put into place? I wish I could show. I'm trying to share this screen. Let me stop this share and then re-share. Here we go. Share screen. All right. Just gonna share the entire screen here. This Ethics Commission Reform Act of 2022 requires that all New York State officers and employees receive a live or online ethics training every year. Why was this put into place? And it just goes to tell me that there's some sort of foul play going on. Why would they have to put something like this in place? Why are there not some sort of policies in place that are regulating these individuals? It just seems to set the perfect stage for corruption. Anybody?
I would maybe just add to that. The colleges actually have very little oversight. I actually was featured top story on 60 Minutes in May 2006 when I brought my research to CBS News, and this wound up being top story and culminated in pretty much the largest financial scandal that the colleges have ever gone through in the country. Kickbacks were found happening between the student loan companies and university financial aid administrators. The financial aid director of Columbia University, by the way, was fired. The financial aid officer of my alma mater, USC, was also fired. So these are a couple of, pretty up there colleges that were engaging in just blatant fraud. And so Yeah, I would, again, I want to applaud Brianna for the research that she's done to this point. One other little place that you may want to look, these private fund companies, these private foundations, most of them, if not all of them, I think are some sort of nonprofit. So if you go to something like guidestar.org, you can very easily see their IRS 990 filings, which is what I did back in 2006 when I was doing my research. I strongly recommend that Brianna or Corey or whoever else is interested do that for this foundation that's adjacent to Hunter College. And just look at it. I can't tell you exactly what you'll find, but I think you will find that their 5 highest paid employees are making probably even more money than the people on the board of regents or trustees that you pointed out earlier, Corey. There's a real dark side to the colleges in this country, and what we can find might just blow your mind. I've found nasty looking monsters under nearly every rock that I've turned over. And, the media should be our friend. I would say, yeah, report what you find to the FBI if you find evidence of blatant law breaking, but be a little careful there. Make sure that you have your I's dotted and your T's crossed before you bring the federal government anything, because what I have found is that there are also very close, collusive, sometimes corrupted relationships certainly between the Department of Education and the colleges, but even between the Department of Justice and higher education places. I would say, sure, if you feel strongly that a blatant law has been found that's been broken, take it to the FBI, but make sure that you have the New York Times or somebody who is read into the situation as it is ongoing. You really want to give yourself the best chance for success. And so at least ideally the media should be there to help on that. I don't know if they are anymore, but at least on paper they should be. So find a reporter that you trust and make sure that they're interested and keep them in the loop.
It's funny, I looked very deeply into some of these relationships with the press and some of the individuals at Hunter. I came to find out that one of their main the general counsel on their legal team, her name was, I think she passed last summer, but Carol Robles, she was the general counsel there at Hunter. And lo and behold, her sister wrote for corruption for the New York Times.
Right.
So they've got this institution has this whole thing on lockdown, and it makes it impossible for the students to get through, and it's so unfortunate.
And that's exactly why I applaud Brianna and you for doing this research. You never know what you're going to find. You find last names appearing in 2 places and you're like, oh my God, that guy is that guy's son. Like, you find all these familial other relationships that make it,
or they work for the same law firm, it's
yes, right,
over
exactly.
and over and over again. I'm seeing it.
Right.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. No wonder.
And the more you wade into it, you never know what you're going to find, but you'll never find it if you don't look. That's probably the most important thing.
Right.
It's really too bad that the Village Voice isn't around anymore. I would say, the New York Times, I used to do stuff with the New York Times all the time. I have found that they have essentially inoculated themselves from the public at this point. It's very hard to break even basic news items at the New York Times anymore. Like what I said earlier, about 80% of all student loan borrowers are not paying. The New York Times is reporting that it's only 40%. They are blatantly misreporting the issue. So yeah, look for alternative newspapers. Village Voice would have been a good one, but I'm sure there's probably other Vice News I found to be pretty good. But hopefully there's still a thriving, or at least a journalism industry in New York with some kind of a pulse. I know the good reporters are still out there if they're hiding.
I would recommend The Intercept. The Intercept is a pretty good one. I'm not too keen on Vice, but The Intercept has great reporters, and I just want to say thank you for the support and the praises, because not many people.
Well, I just love to see it. That's you're in exactly where I was 20 years ago, and you would be really, really surprised what you might find. And although the media landscape has just so drastically changed from then to now, I think if you've got something really strong, you hopefully the truth will take you far.
So I think also running for office, if you really want to change things, you have to get into a power of position, or a position of power, because things aren't going to change much from the ground up. Sadly, they don't do that. You know, you've got the pressure of people working against you, and once people get power, they don't give it up very freely. So I think run for office. Run for office, write some lawsuits. This is the way you have to go about getting things changed. Otherwise, they're just going to continue. Because, yeah, it's a big organization, and there's lots of people who are trying to keep everybody down and to keep it in place and to keep their power and to keep their money. And it's really hard to change it. So, yeah, I run for office and do things like this, you know, host events, get the message out to the more people, the better, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Um,
the beauty of the internet today, and the ability to, you know, create your own platform so easily
That's right.
with things like YouTube. Thank God. Thank God. It's
That's
such
right.
a changed dynamic and platform.
So the one thing I wanted to say about the student loan debt, when I went to Parsons, I also ended up with a lot of student loan debt. And then I also, when I graduated, I was the last class that graduated without computers. So the very next year, they came out, you know, with paste ups and mechanicals right on the computer. And I mean, I went through illustration, so I didn't really do paste up and mechanicals, but that put a lot of other artists out on the street. And then 2 years later, they introduced cameras into the courtrooms, which put another whole bunch of illustrators out on the street. So the market was flooded with artists, and none of us artists complained. We just managed, right? But we all had to manage in our own way. And I decided, well, you know, it's really hard to get a job in the art world. So then I ended up taking on more student loan debt, actually. I put myself back to school to learn typing and word processing because I never learned that, you know. We didn't have computers. So I know my situation is very foreign to a lot of you here, but this is how it was. But I put myself into even more debt, and then even more debt because I kept going back to school to learn more things. So I eventually got into Wall Street and learning about finance and stockbrokering and all that. But the long story short is, yeah, at some point I declared bankruptcy. And that's when I learned that, yes, you're right. They don't pay off. You know, you can't declare bankruptcy from some of these student loans. So even after bankruptcy, I was stuck with a lot of my loans, which I eventually did pay off. So it does happen. But the point is that, you know, I was actually a special situation. I was the first one in my family history to go to university. And so, you know, my parents wanted it, I wanted it, and so we made it happen. But yes, I had a lot of student loan debt. It's true. My parents even had student loan debt. And, you know, this was very unfortunate. We managed to pay it off. You know, it didn't happen from one day to the next, but it eventually happened. But the real point is there are a lot of people who went into the military over the last 40 years who gave their life for that free education. And so to give free education to people who are not willing to risk their lives, I have a problem with that. You know, we cannot give the people who lost their lives for their free education, we cannot give their life back. There's no way to get it back.
Well,
so we cannot just hand over money. We cannot just hand over money to someone else just because you have student loan debt. You have to figure it out. You have to pay your loans back. You took them out. Your parents took them out. You knew what you were doing. You got to pay them back. I'm sorry. If you don't want to pay them back,
I'm actually really glad to hear that comment, Susan.
Then get a job in the military. Sign up for a military branch. You are rude to talk over me. Sign up for a military branch and get your loan paid back.
Well.
You've been talking for a long time, Susan.
Susan, yeah, Susan, that's not how you conduct yourself in a debate.
So if I could
Yes,
just
it
get
is.
30 or
He's
40 seconds.
interrupting me and talking over me. That's
Well,
exactly
now
how you talk.
Anyway, folks, it's at the hour mark. I want to say thank you for your time. I've learned a lot from some of these candidates. I definitely will be paying more attention to smaller candidates because of this. Thank you to Corey and DJ. If you guys continue on, I'll catch the rest of the live stream later. But thank you for having me, you guys, and I hope you have a great evening.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
I'd like to
Brianna.
get a little time to respond to Susan if I could. So Susan, I don't know what sort of fantasy world you're living in, but you should talk to a veteran. Veterans are being absolutely ruined by federal student loans. People who go to trade schools are being absolutely ruined by federal student loans. You have taken it upon yourself to blame the borrowers for what has become the most unconstitutionally vicious, hyperinflationary, and unconstitutional loan scam, and it is a scam, in US history. You know, you talk about student loan borrowers like we haven't paid. We have paid. In fact, many years of White House budget data, Department of Education data have shown that the federal government has gotten back every nickel that it has lent out. The $1.6 trillion that we're talking about today is interest. It's profit for the government. So you're not paying with your tax money to pay for anybody's college when we do student loan cancellation. The government has been paid. They've been paid by the student loan borrowers. And this is for a lending program that in 1965 was supposed to originally have been free of interest. Well, today, $100 billion a year in interest alone clicks off on our backs. And that's going to be escalating greatly. So the $3,000 or $4,000 that you managed to repay back in the 80s, that has, I'm sorry, but it has nothing to do with today's situation. And you wagging your finger at the borrowers and blaming them for this vicious, unfettered, unchained lending beast that's been unleashed across the country, I just think that you need to educate yourself a little more about federal student loans. And I'm very happy. I would suggest strongly that you go to our student loan justice .medium platform. And you can see that all of the misinformation that I've heard, much of it in your comments, but it goes well beyond that. If you can see that almost everything you see the mainstream media reporting about federal student loans, about how cancellation the taxpayers, about how student loan cancellation will largely benefit wealthy people, about how it will cause inflation. Those are all outrageously false and provably false assertions.
Okay.
So
I just get a question right here,
Susan. But you know, I do this all day long. But just educate yourself and don't take what you read in the media as gospel, because it's propaganda. The media landscape has really changed over the years, and 99% of what you're going to read is untrue about student loans today.
I don't know if Andy wants to comment, but I do have another question. Andy, did you want to comment, or should I just go into the next question?
I'll just go to the next question. It'll be cool.
Okay. So my question here is, right, the thing is that today, right, I actually have, I probably have even emailed you some of these lists of all the student governments that I've researched, because I've actually looked up for every state, right, student governments in every state. And I've shared some of these email lists with you. And they've all been emailed about today's event, but none of them are here today. And the professors also are not really participating as much as we'd like. They've, unfortunately, I told you that the anti-movement student movement is highly cooperative, highly controlled, right? Yeah, you'd think they want to talk to us. What can you do, right? Whether you agree with one side or the other, once again, someone's going to win. It's your ability to mobilize those students. So what are you going to do to actually mobilize students yourself? I just want to know from different candidates, you know, how can we sign up for a campaign, and how can you mobilize students? I'm wondering. Go ahead.
Well, for me, I really appreciate Brianna stepping in, correcting the questions and the answers. And to that is because she has way more experience in that area than I do. So I yield to that, and Corey too. So what I ask is that be my advisors, so then I can align with the strengths that you already have. Because my strength is more over here in this area. My education background is not the same research education background that you guys have done because that's your passion. So when Susan says, hey, run for office, that's because that's a platform that you have more experience in. But how I would mobilize is to align and say, listen, to this generation, be my advisor. I'm 51. You know, that's not my strength. But if you teach me, if you show me, then together we can implement that solution. And exactly implementation, that's what I do. So that's how I would do it, DJ, to bring it in, because I think so often we get on platforms and saying, hey, I'm running for president. And I'm not saying it in this area, but we try to come up with all the solutions. And that's not accurate. That's why a president has a cabinet and each one of those cabinet members. So what I do is I would bring forth a cabinet of advisors with expertise. And great, Brianna, I love the research. You know, that's what I did about the slavery stuff in the prisons and stuff, that exact same research. So I can applaud that to you and say, I would invite you to come in and be an advisor and show me how to take that information that you've done and bring it to the light, bring it into a suit, bring it into an injunction, declare what it is, and take that and educate all the other student organizations with the research that you found, and then make Cooney or New York be a model state of what happens when you guys are doing this injustice and robbing the people.
Sounds good.
So I would maybe say, first of all, you know, over the past 20 years of doing this, I can tell you that it's very difficult to get college students organized and fighting. You know, college students aren't students for very long. And, you know, at that age, they really just don't know the sophistication of the federal student loan program, first of all, but they don't really understand how vicious the financing system that's risen up around them has become. And more often than not, there's been a few exceptions in my case. I found the University of Illinois did a pretty good job. But like with NYU students and even Berkeley students and every other college, and there's been about a dozen colleges that I've worked with over the past few years, usually the university's administration will co-opt the students. So when the students come out saying, hey, student loan justice, by the time the colleges get done with them, the college students are usually saying, hey, government, give my college more money. So that's just kind of the way that dynamic goes. It's really unfortunate. And I don't blame the students. You know, I didn't know much when I was their age, and I don't expect that they should know, would know, or should know what we as older people here today now do know. In fact, most student loan borrowers, believe it or not, older people over the age of 35 now outnumber younger people under the age of 35 with student loans by nearly, in fact, by over 2 million people. So I spend my time trying to organize and galvanize the people who have already been out of college, particularly the older people. They seem to be the most receptive, and the people who, by their own pain, feel the weight of this predatory, unconstitutional loan system on their backs. But you know, I'm always open to work with any college students who are on fire for the cause. Definitely.
Alan, curious if you have any knowledge of how much these institutions for graduating students, do they get anything, federal funds or federal money for graduating students?
No, the colleges get no bonuses for graduation. There used to be, and maybe again will be, a law on the books saying if their students do really terribly, then there can be a financial penalty against the colleges. That's something called the gainful employment rule. But no, the way the financial incentives are arranged, the colleges can make far more money by keeping a student in college for not 4 years, but now on average 6.2 years. And as I said, 40% of all students don't even graduate. And the colleges are really not accountable to that at all. That rule that I mentioned earlier, it was killed. And even when it was alive, it was never used. It really never carried any real weight with the colleges.
I would say at an institutional level, that's correct. But sometimes you'll have like certain administrators that are trying to protect the college's image or numbers or something, right? And they have certain deliverables. But but I would say, right, institutionally overall, right, the legally, right, yeah, the numbers, right, the contract, you're right, yeah. But there's significant people, so just want to throw that in there, right? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Great.
All right, cool. Susan, how would you actually mobilize students? Because we need students in this room here. We're from West Virginia. Like, there's West Virginia students up in here. We need to have them meeting these. I think your candidacies are great, and I want these students to learn about it, right? University of West Virginia, get the students in here. Yeah.
So as far as mobilizing students, first off, students need to realize, actually, the ones who are doing the protesting about the Israel-Palestine war going on, this, if you get arrested, you probably will lose the right to vote for this election, and that's why they're arresting you. So don't set up shop anywhere. Keep moving if you're protesting. If you're moving, you have the right to be there. If you set up camp, technically you don't have the right, and then you could get arrested, and then you will lose a lot of your rights, and voting will be one of them. So a lot of you, sadly, will not be able to vote in the coming election. I hope you realize that. And anyone listening who doesn't know that, be aware of that. And like I said, if you want to protest, I'm all for protesting. I am actually more for making lawsuits and reporting corruption. But if you feel the need to protest, do it, but keep moving. Don't set up any home base anywhere, because then you can be arrested and then you'll be losing a lot of your rights. I mean, I think it's great that that you are all out and saying something, and this is important. It's part of our country to have free speech, free assembly, and everything. So thank you for what you're doing there. As far as being what can you do? I already told you. You need to run for office. A lot of you are already able to hold local and state positions, and we need people in the state government and the local government who have diverse backgrounds. So it doesn't matter if you have that college degree or not. Start working in government. Get in there. There's lots of jobs available, and you can still continue your education at night or part-time or whatever, but we need you in the decision-making bodies of government. And really, for some jobs, you only have to be 18 years old. For other jobs, you have to be 21. For some, you have to be 25. But these are all ages of students. So get involved. It's important. And if you're really good at reading and understanding documents, then please do it. We need to hear your voices. And as far as I go, I've been running for office. It started back in 2020. Back in 22, I was running for Congress. In 2020, I was running for president. And now I'm back again running for president. I've been around this country. I've talked to so many people from all walks of life, from all over the country. And I hear you all. And the idea of we need to really overhaul our education system. Starting from the ground up, we need to change the lower education and the higher education. I'm 100% with you. I will agree, I don't like student loan debt. I don't think one should have to go into debt to get an education. This has been forced upon us, you're right. And we got involved. And this is the sad part. We believed them that it had to happen this way.
Okay,
And this
I'm sorry, yeah. I just I know we're like I see that in the message here that Alan's got to go at 8:30, so I did want to ask some questions about. I'm sorry to just interrupt like that, but some things that the students are going through right now. Right now, there are students who are having their degrees withheld, things like that, right? This is actually right. They may be watching now later on. As presidential candidates, what do you have to say about them getting their degrees one by one? Just real quick. Just want to hear from y'all before we.
Well,
leave.
let me just finish that. First off, I apparently with not getting your diploma and not going to your graduation ceremony. Like for a doctor, that's when they say the oath of their office or their oath of their doctorate or whatever. So that if they're not there and if they're not getting that degree, they're not saying that. So they don't have to do it. Just to let you know, that's something I discovered learning about the medical industry that we have now. So this is a huge problem that the kids are not getting their graduations, that they're not getting their diplomas. It's a huge problem. So I am 100% with you. This should not be happening.
Okay. What about
I just
Andy?
wanted to add something really quick, just to kind of piggyback off of with the protesting and what we were talking about. There is a tenured journalism professor at Hunter, and I subscribe to receive any updates that he has. And I believe I saw this on the news as well. Something to the effect of that, specifically CUNY students were being arrested, whereas some of the other students at some of these other institutions were let off, Columbia's, etc., and NYU, but the ones at CUNY specifically were being held, they were being held much harder, and these legal things were holding them to the legalities of much harder than some of these other students from these other institutions. Blatant injustice, and blows my mind that this is going on at this institution. Thank you.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's an unchecked culture of abuse at the institutional level, which is why you see a pileup of actually multiple people here today, right? Corey, myself. I'm a victim of Hunter College as well, too. I actually have a video where I unveiled their books about, how they were spending money and getting private phones paid for and going on vacations and stuff on the school money. Nothing happened to them. And, I've faced a lot of repercussions on that. I'm a whistleblower, but oh well. Yeah, just just to get some sound bites for the kids, well, actually, it does matter too, right? Their future's on the line, right? Al, what do you think about? I see you, how do you feel about these kids who might have their tuition? Their diplomas taken away?
I think it's ridiculous. I think that the colleges have become these sort of, I don't want to say slave masters. We're not talking about slavery here, but we are talking about a power relationship where the colleges have all the power and they have none of the liability. These student loans, the colleges get the money and they never have to give that money back. In a future higher education funding model, the colleges have got to be put on a hook. They've got to have some financial liability. So, for example, if there is to be a student loan program going forward, there should be full, free, and fair standard bankruptcy protections with those loans. And in the event of a discharge, the colleges should be compelled to reimburse the government of something significant, maybe half of what was originally borrowed. This was legislation that I was fighting for last session with Senator Dick Durbin. So when the colleges have a financial interest in the success of the students, they won't be so quick to abuse them, to withhold their transcripts, keep them from being able to use their degrees to get a job, to earn money to pay their loans back, etc. I think we'll see a lot of it's a very virtuous cycle. When the colleges are on the side of the students, want them to succeed, want them to graduate in a reasonable amount of time, etc., some very good things will happen. And I don't think that we're going to see this anything like it under the current financing system. So I would maybe, in closing, because I have to leave in a minute or so, I would just say anybody who has student loans, I would urge you very strongly to go to collegeforpresident.com. Look at my agenda. You'll see it's very reasonable. It's very rational. It's something that the president can indeed do. It starts with bankruptcy, but it also includes canceling some or maybe even all federally owned student loans by executive order. This is a power that the president absolutely does have. And when bankruptcy is returned, it will become absolutely inevitable. But have a look for yourself, see if you agree. And if you do, tell everybody with student loans, maybe all the college students who who have or will be getting student loans, about my campaign. And we can really put a lot of pressure on and it might bear fruit even before the election if we can galvanize the way that I'm hoping. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ellen. Pleasure having you tonight. DJ, did you have anything else that you wanted to address?
Not at the moment, no.
Anyone else? Anything else to add? Last few minutes.
Well, I would just say about the students that are being denied their diplomas. If it's a federally backed loan, then the federal government, from our standpoint, would say give them their degree, and then we'll cut the school's funding because it's unconscionable. You promise us something and that you don't deliver, and it's been going on for so long. So the terms of the agreement for the college education is unconscionable. So we start withholding funds from the colleges. You don't want to give the students their degrees. If they invested this time, then we're going to withhold your funds.
Sounds good to me.
Susan, did you have anything to add?
Well, one thought I had in all of this too is that the real problem is the high price of education. And if you feel like a lot of us did after you graduate and you feel like you didn't get the full education you should have, I think you should team up with some of your other classmates and sue your college. You know, we have the courts there for a reason. And you can, if you're, you know, if I can do it, I went to an art school. So I almost failed English several times, and I am doing exactly that. I sued my Secretary of State and the election division because of the election fraud that's going on. And now I've got things pending with the Supreme Court. If I can do it, you can do it. It doesn't cost a lot of money if you do it yourself, and you are probably smarter than me, and you can definitely do it. It costs $400 to do a local federal lawsuit with your federal court system, and so it's really doable. It means, I mean, you're spending the time finding out the problems anyways. So just take it one step further and sue the school is what I would recommend. So I've given you many recommendations about how to solve a lot of the issues that we talked about today and in the world around us. So I hope you actually take charge just like I did and pick up the baton and go forward with it. We can change our country, and we really can. And you can too. It's not just me, it's also you. So I am running for president. I am Susan Buxer Lahaki, and my website, I mean, I'm better on Facebook. I'm all over Facebook and YouTube. I've got over 400 videos on YouTube if you want to go watch them from all my campaigns that I've been doing for the last 4 years. But my website is susan4usa.com. That's Susan, the number 4usa.com. Thank you for organizing this. Thanks that I could be here. And although, you know, it got a little, a little hairy there for a bit, that's part of it too, you know. And we all come at it with different angles and different issues. And that's what makes debates important and also worthwhile, and we hear different points of view. So thank you again that I could be here. I wish everybody a good night.
You know, I did want to throw in one thing at the end. Yeah, the students, by the way, you students, right, there's 4 forces at the university. You got the administrators, you got the faculty, you have the staff, the students. Politically, which group is the most powerful? The students. You have thousands of people, right? Yeah, all voting age. Y'all could easily pass a resolution saying in this area of town, right? Yeah, the school cannot be doing this or that. But why are you out there protesting? I'm not saying protesting is not worth it, but I'm saying they don't have you doing is mobilizing. What they don't have you doing, right, is actually organizing. What they don't have you doing is participating in discussions with U.S. presidential candidates like this. What they don't have you doing, right, is talking to victims of war like myself. Instead, they have savior figures like Jill Stein, Cornel West, right? Yeah. Front and center. Can you name one Palestinian activist? Can you name even one? Why are they front and center? Where are the Palestinian activists? Can you imagine how ridiculous this is? Right now, thank you so much for the candidates that came here today. Once again, students, it's in your hands. No one else's. Some power, right? Some power can be given. Some power cannot. Some power must be taken. Learn from the Asian Americans. Learn from the Asians, right? All you know about is Confucianism and Zen, right? Follow the law. or right, because thousands of years of book burning have happened. If you look at dissident thought, right, that's why you had the Cultural Revolution. People who try to deny Cultural Revolution happened. They hurt a lot of academics, and I'm not saying that I approve of like what happened during that time, but they understand there's a horrible relationship between the establishment and academia, and these things are always marching together, and these things need to be ripped apart sometimes, and there needs to be accountability. And the fact of the matter is that the elites have taken over and they're out of control, and we need to bring this back under our control. Yeah, and that's it. So y'all are suckers, straight up. Yeah, thousands of people, thousands of students all over, and you let 2 or 3 cats like decide what's going on in your diplomas. Yo, who's the fool right there? Y'all, yo, come on, wake up. Yeah, we got the voter list available. Rep my block. Once again, we can run for county committee. You're doing it to yourselves. I can't even, you know what I mean? Nah. That's basically what I had to say. Thank you.
Great.
Well, thanks,
Thank you,
everybody.
everyone,
Glad
for
we did
being
this.
here. Great debate.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks all.
Okay.
Peace.
Hi, Susan.
Yes? Are you still